What you're looking at right now is a list of every single god in the Zelda franchise. If it seems like a lot, that's because it is. It can be a little overwhelming to try and process this enormous pantheon, but don't worry because I'm going to walk you through the religion in The Legend of Zelda. Before we get started, this is a part 2 video. You can watch this video without having watched the last one, but if you want to see the breakdown of the religions in the first half of the Zelda franchise, go ahead and check out that video. Maybe subscribe in the process if you have time. There were a couple of things I missed in the first video that some people pointed out in the comments, so I'll go over those right now. First off, I skipped over Lord Jabu Jabu in the Oracle games. He lives in a shrine next to the Zora village in the Oracle of Ages. It is unclear what the relationship is between Jabu Jabu in Ocarina of Time and this version is, but it still probably counts as a god. The second thing I skipped over was the mention of the Goddess of Time in Majora's Mask. This is an interesting addition because we see the direct influence of the Goddess of Time throughout the game, but we never see the goddess herself. There is some evidence that the goddess Hylia could be the goddess of time, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. For now, I would just like to point out that we don't know if the gods of Hyrule even exist in Termina or if they have any influence. This makes it even more ambiguous as to who exactly this goddess is. Next, let's zoom in and take a closer look at the gods in Minish Cap. When we start the game, we are treated to an intro cutscene. In this cutscene, we learn that the Picori descended from the sky and bestowed upon a hero a sacred blade of golden light. What exactly this makes the Picoris is unclear. The intro makes it seem like the Picori are powerful beings capable of great feats of magic, but then throughout the game we meet these little guys in Minish villages. It seems like there is power scaling even within the Minish themselves. For example, Eslo created the Minish Cap, which grants great magical power. Although this makes the wearer powerful, that does not inherently make them a god. There are two other examples of religion in the Minish Cap. The first one we see is the box that held the Picori blade before Vaati decided to shenaniganize. This box contains evil spirits that were sealed away by the Picori blade. This has significance into real-life relics tied to real-life religions. I could see this being inspired by Pandora's box from Greek mythology. This was a box that contained great evil that Pandora was tricked into releasing into the world. The other relic it could be referencing is the Ark of the Covenant from the Christian Bible. This was a box containing sacred relics that was supposedly contained in the innermost parts of the temples created by the Israelites. The box in the game demonstrates aspects of both real-world parallels. The other demonstration of godlike power was the light force contained in Princess Zelda herself. This is likely a byproduct of her lineage, which we will get into later in the video. It is unclear if there are specific gods that any of the people in Minish Cap worship, but there are temples and shrines constructed throughout the world depicting many different beings. Some of them are a little more than ruins when we arrive. If we split away from Minish Cap, we can take a look at Four Swords. Four Swords has a very simple story with basically no gods in the game. There are great fairies which allow Link to go fight Vaati at the end of the game, but other ways, we got nothing. Four Swords Adventure, on the other hand, also doesn't have any influence on religious implications to the series. This brings us to one of the most plot-heavy games in the series, Twilight Princess. There are several instances of gods and religion in this game that introduce new beings into the series. The first and most simple of these new beings is the Light Spirits. These are powerful beings that watch over their respective provinces. There are 4 that we are introduced to in the game. We meet Ordana, Farron, Eldin, and Lanayru. It is assumed that each province is named after the light spirit that watches over it. They also have names that are derivative of the golden goddesses. Fair becomes Farron, Din becomes Eldin, Nehru becomes Lanayru, but I'm not 100% sure where Ordana comes from. The next group of people we need to talk about in this game are the Interlopers. This is a group of powerful magic users who tried to establish dominance over the sacred realm. When they tried this, they were banished by the light spirits and the goddess to the Twilight realm. This group of people eventually evolved into the Twili we see in the game. It is theorized that because the Interlopers were responsible for the creation of the Fused Shadow, they were also responsible for the creation of the Majora's Mask. This makes some sense. The Fused Shadow is after all a mask that contains great dark magic. The light spirit Lanayru tells us to use caution because it can corrupt the user. The Twili have since become a mostly peaceful people who live in their land of eternal darkness. They have orbs called souls that bestow power to the world and can reverse the magic that Zant has inflicted on his people. It also infuses the Master Sword with sacred light that allows Link to dispel the darkness present in the Twilight. Among the Twili, they at least acknowledge the power of the goddess and have a prophecy concerning concerning the hero that will appear in the Twilight. It is said that the hero will have the soul of a beast and will wield the power of the goddess. We can see the prophecy fulfilled in Twilight Princess. In Twilight Princess is the first time we see Ganondorf worshipped as a god. Zant, after being humiliated at his defeat against Midna for the throne, is approached by Ganondorf, who, because of his immense power, appears as a flaming mass of energy. Understandably, Zant thinks this must be a god and accepts his power. The bestowal of power is what allows Zant to kill Ganondorf at the very end of the game. In this game, we get to see a more in-depth depiction of the religion practiced by the Goron tribe. Not only do they practice ritual combat, but they also have a pecking order of elders and a patriarch. It seems that these members are picked by seniority for the elders and raw power for the patriarch. It also highlights the lack of women in the Goron tribe. But then you have to wonder if Gorons have a gender at all. We see a bit deeper in the life of the Zora as well. We do not see any gods they worship, but we do see the tradition of the Zora armor. We know that the Zora armor is crafted by a Zora or their fiancé, and this is the first time we see Zora armor crafted for a Hylian. This piece of armor also fits the hero of Twilight perfectly, just like his green tunic. I bet there's a theory in there somewhere. The final race we are introduced to in the game are the Uka. This is one of the most bizarre races in The Legend of Zelda. It is said that they are the closest race to the gods. They have immense technological capability and powerful magic. Some claim that the Uka were instrumental in the creation of Hyrule. They have a floating city in the skies, but when we visit, the city is in ruin. Who the Uka are and where they came from is largely a mystery. This leaves us to wonder if they worship the gods or if we should be worshiping them as gods. The next stop in our journey is the realm of the Ocean King. The story of this game is very similar to that of Link's Awakening, when we learn that a large portion of the game is a creation of a powerful Leviathan that was cursed. Ocean King seems to have power similar to the Windfish in Link's Awakening, but we never see him again. If we keep on sailing, eventually we'll make our way to the new kingdom of Hyrule. This kingdom is bountiful in resources and technology. In the center of the 5 realms contained in this new land is a tower known as the Tower of Spirits. The tower was created by the legendary spirits of good as a place to hold the demon Malladus. Malladus allegedly terrorized the land that is now known as New Hyrule. He is a powerful demon who later tries to take Zelda's physical body. The fact that he terrorized the land makes you think that either the Tower of the Spirits was there when Link and Zelda founded the land, or there is another story where the hero of winds beats the crap out of yet another demon. The Lokomo are the guardians that watch over the land of New Hyrule. Their exact power is unclear, but they are said to have been the servants of the hero of winds and Princess Zelda. If we look past the tower in the center of New Hyrule, we can see the skies where thousands of years ago the entire story began. In Skyward Sword, we learn about an imprisoning war that takes place shortly after the creation of the land. This war was between the races created by the 3 golden goddesses, led by the goddess Hylia, and the demon forces, led by Demise. Hylia was entrusted with the protection of the Triforce by the 3 golden goddesses. When the battle between good and evil became dire, Hylia gathered the Hylians and sent them into the sky along with the Triforce. Now with the annoying Hylians out of the way, the rest of the races were able to drive back Demise's forces and seal him away. The extent of Hylia's power could reasonably be assumed to be a perfect match for that of Demise. If she was more powerful, she could have destroyed him. If she was less powerful, she never would have stood a chance against him in the first place. Although her power matches that of Demise's, she was injured in the battle, and therefore the seal on Demise would not last forever. Because of this, she started planning. She put all of her money on a chosen hero and created trials and tools for him to eventually destroy Demise outright. She created the Goddess Sword and she created the trials in the Sacred Realm. These trials would allow the hero to find the 3 sacred flames, which would empower the Goddess Sword to repel all evil. This would create a weapon that could destroy Demise and cast out evil, the Master Sword. He appointed the care of the land to 3 dragons. All of these dragons bear the same names as the spirits of light in Twilight Princess. It is possible that there is a connection between the two. They could even be the same beings. Finally, the goddess Hylia shed her divinity to become a mortal known as Zelda. The hope was, as a mortal, she would be able to use the power of the Triforce to destroy Demise. This closely parallels the real-world religion of Christianity. It is a Christian belief that Jesus shed his divinity to become a mortal and save mankind. The difference is, the goddess Hylia ended up making Link do literally all of the work. Seriously. Other than giving Link motivation to go on the quest in the first place, I don't see any real reason she needed to become immortal at all. Link is the one that ends up using the Triforce. Link is the one who created the Master Sword. Link is the one who defeats Demise. Link is such a good guy, I'm pretty sure he would have done all of that if you had just asked nicely. I'm getting off topic. It is reasonable to assume that the goddess Hylia is also the goddess of time, because the relics she created have the ability to manipulate time. The Master Sword is the key to the Temple of Time, and the Temple of Time was constructed directly in front of an enormous statue of the goddess Hylia. Because she shed her divinity and became immortal, she bestowed her power to the royal bloodline of Hyrule. As a display of respect for the goddess, every daughter born to the royal family is named Zelda. Because of her contributions, the people of Hyrule worship the goddess Hylia as their protector and savior. There is also a reference to the goddess Hylia in the form of a manga at the back of Hyrule Historia. It is ambiguous whether this is canon or not. Personally, I think they should be worshipping Link because he did all the heavy lifting. Any worship we see done in Skyward Sword is either done in reference to the goddess Hylia or the dragons that watch over their realms. Hi there, hello, this is editing Swagmaster. I totally forgot to mention Leviathan in Skyward Sword. Basically, he's just a giant Leviathan that can fly around. He's very similar to the Windfish in Link's Awakening and the Ocean King in Phantom Hourglass. In A Link Between Worlds, we do not see any new religions practiced, but we do learn more about the Triforce. In the Kingdom of Lorule, we learn that they had a similar problem to Hyrule. Because the Triforce existed, there were wars to obtain this ultimate power. In Hyrule, this was resolved by sealing away the Triforce, locking it away using sacred keys. They even split it into pieces and hid it at the bottom of the ocean. Lorule came to the conclusion that they could simply destroy the Triforce, Thanos style. Unfortunately, this led to the decay of their kingdom. It created such a scar that the only hope was to steal the Triforce from Hyrule. This also is where we learn just how powerful the Triforce is. The Triforce is capable of creating a copy of itself in a different world. This teaches us that 1, there are no limits to what the Triforce can do, and 2, Triforce has influence in more than just Hyrule. After Link overcomes the threat to Hyrule, he decides to travel and gets new clothes. The people in Hytopia worship fashion. It's that simple. Now take a deep breath, or a wild one for that matter, because next we're taking a look at the game, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. When we first enter this world, the first thing I noticed was a disturbing lack of the Triforce. For something that has been so instrumental to the series, it was strange to have no reference to its existence beyond the crest of the royal family. In place of the Triforce, we find many statues of the goddess Hylia scattered across the land. This is the first game in the series to make it so apparent that Hylia is the god that most Hylians worship. It's not just the Hylians though, as we see the Goron, Zora, and Rito all worshipping the goddess as well. The Gerudo have a more complicated relationship with the goddess. This is displayed by the goddess statue being cast aside in Gerudo Town. Why the Gerudo do not hold Hylia in the same regard as the other races is unclear. Perhaps it is because the goddess blessed the Hylians while the Gerudo lived in a harsh desert. This is the motivation that Ganondorf had for obtaining the Triforce in the first place. He goes into more detail about this in the Wind Waker. The inverse of this is just as interesting of a question. Why does everyone else worship Hylia so fully? I think this boils down to the history of Hyrule we see depicted in Tears of the Kingdom. Rauru, the Zonai King of Hyrule, manages to unite the different races in Hyrule. The last people he is yet to unite is the Gerudo. This is due to Ganondorf ceasing control over all the Gerudo villages through force. The Gerudo simply were not influenced by the religion that Rauru and his people practiced. Everyone else was. The Zonai obviously have a strong connection to the goddess Hylia. This devotion is most likely what caused the rest of the kingdom to follow in his footsteps. What exactly the Zonai believe is not very clear. They obviously have an affinity towards the goddess Hylia. Some of their sacred ruins are built around the springs devoted specifically to the goddess. They also have dragons guarding each spring respectively, and we know that the creation of these dragons is tied to the secret stones of the Zonai. There are also references to the Triforce in their ruins. In a video on the God Tribe by Wiz Catches Lightning, he points out that there are depictions of courage, wisdom, and power in the form of a dragon, owl, and boar respectively. So they have ties to the goddess Hylia and the Triforce. But then, why did they build these labyrinths? Why did they have armor constructed from bones and hide? The Zonai have a deep culture that spans farther back than we can imagine. Probably before the events of Skyward Sword, their creation and downfall are a mystery. The Sheikah in Breath of the Wild seem to be connected to the Zonai in some way. They have the same eye imagery and the same deep connection to the goddess Hylia. Given the white hair that so many of them have, it isn't off the table that they are blood relatives of the Zonai. Even their religious beliefs seem to follow the Zonai. The last tribe I want to touch on is the Yiga clan. They are an offshoot of the Sheikah tribe who worship Ganondorf and try to revive him. Their upside down eye imagery defiles the idea that the Sheikah monks have their third eye opened by the goddess Hylia. The best part about the Yiga clan is that it seems like Ganondorf has absolutely no idea that they exist. They are simps for their favorite VTuber, Ganondorf. Well, there you have it. This is, to my knowledge, every god and religion referenced in The Legend of Zelda. If I missed anything, let me know in the comments. I would also love to know what your thoughts are on the Zonai. Thank you so much, and see you next time.